Hi, Darren again here. Good to see you. So late last year, Novemberish, I think, I uploaded a series of videos, which I kind of called the alt heroes. These were all lists of my favorite guitarists, bass players, drummers, who were working in the kind of the alternative sphere. I'll put links up there somewhere. Yeah, people seem to like these, and there was, of course, an obvious conclusion to that series, which I never recorded. Well, here I am. I'm doing it. Yeah, this is it. Yeah, you've seen the title. So why the delay? I really just didn't like the idea of picking a list of 20 singers. I think in a lot of ways the human voice, it kind of short circuits our critical facilities. We have a direct kind of emotional response to it. Music speaks to us. And for music that does feature a singer, a lyric, I think it's that we respond to most strongly. And of course, you'll also get, the immediate, criticism from people who value, technical singers. So rewatching those instrument-focused videos, I kind of found the key to how I was going to do this again. It was this staring me in the face. And that is to just use the same criteria as before. Yeah, those being ideas, taste, and execution. Yeah, this list will contain some technically gifted performers, the guys and the girls with golden pipes. But there'll be just as many who have a style, a signature, a lyrical talent maybe, and they're by no means great singers. And as with all these lists, this is completely unranked. They're all entirely personal choices. And I will leave out maybe some of the more obvious or big names to make room for some maybe lesser celebrated people. But the one thing I did find with this list was that I did tend to gravitate towards those bigger names. And I think it is purely a case of that kind of, you emotionally connect with certain voices, and you really just can't get around that. Anyway, so let's begin. And at number 1, I've got Elizabeth Fraser of the Cocteau Twins, This Mortal Coil. Yeah, like I said, probably a fairly big and a fairly obvious name to start the list with, but, just a hugely talented, idiosyncratic singer with just that really distinctive musical, lyrical style. Any singer who becomes, kind of a comparator, like a go-to for people to judge other singers, you immediately know they're an influential name. People will describe someone as sounding like Liz Fraser. Yeah, very clear, kind of high, heady voice, if you see what I mean. It's not like a diaphragm singer. She's not a real kind of, belter. And she has a very unique lyrical approach. This odd diction, strangely assembled grammar, invented words, often indecipherable, and operating more as a kind of an instrument, a tonal instrument, than as a vehicle for delivering, a readable lyric. Yet one of those generational singers, I think, definitely an influence on a certain strand of other singers. Those people who do focus on the voice as an instrument. I mean, someone like Johnsy of Sigur Rós, that kind of thing would be a perfect example, to the point of even inventing your own vocabulary, your own syntax or language. Yeah, a huge body of work to draw on. Think the Cocteau Twins, think This Mortal Coil, think her collaborations with artists like Massive Attack. So second up, I've got David Byrne of Talking Heads. Yeah, I think if you grew up in the 70s, 80s, maybe in a small town without any cool, record stores or anything, very little exposure to alternative music, you probably got your first taste of kind of, left field, maybe artier music through Talking Heads. Yeah, one of the first of those, US new wave acts, one of the artier ones at least, to really cross over and get, genuine chart success. Think tracks like Once in a Lifetime, Burning Down the House, Road to Nowhere. Yeah, and front and center of that sound is David Byrne. That jittery, wired delivery, full of all the yelps and the weird little vocal ticks and exaltations. Yeah, on the surface, kind of almost like a very nerdy, hesitant character, but he's able to kind of swoop in and adopt these kind of very sweet, old R&B inflected tones when he needs to. Yeah, I don't think this is kind of like a white soul style. Heaven forbid. It's just a very kind of innocent, naive, almost wide-eyed character, but with this depth that he can reach into. I think it says a lot that at one point in the night there, he's David Bowie, no less, declared David Byrne, the most complete performer of his generation. You're probably all familiar with Talking Heads, but I think if I was to start anywhere, I would actually go straight to Jonathan Demme's Stop Making Sense, his concert movie, to get a full picture of David Byrne, as a singer and as a performer. So third on this list, and this is the first one I think I really have to kind of justify and make a case for. Yeah, this is Mark E. Smith of The Fall. Yeah, Mark is not a, singer in the classical sense, but that vocal style of his lyrical style, his glowering, scornful, playful, kind of acidic personality. It was The Fall. And like he did say, yeah, if it was just me and your granny playing the bongos, it'd still be The Fall. So yes, Mark, this kind of hectoring, unflappable, autodidact from Salford, his lyrics were cut up and obtuse and cryptic, always semi-spoken, reveling in this kind of free-form, associative kind of doggerel. Yeah, his lyrics could be sometimes comic, but usually offering some kind of cultural commentary, and usually, either poking fun or puncturing something. But that was kind of grafted onto a very literary style, I think, encompassing all his influences from, William Blake to H.P. Lovecraft to Arthur Machen, all the way through to Iggy Pop. Yeah, Mark was a one-off, and he's been gone for 5 years now. I think there are probably no easy jumping off points in the Fall's back catalogue. A few albums would be good starting places for you. This Nation's Saving Grace, Hex Induction Hour, or the Extricate LPs. All of them would be enough to get you up to speed with the genius of Marky Smith. Yeah, to me, he is the greatest lyricist to emerge out of that first post-punk scene. Yeah, rattle through these a little quicker now. At number 4, I've got Mary Margaret O'Hara. Yeah, she's the archetypal cult artist, I think. One film soundtrack credited to her aside, she only ever released one album, that being her 1988 debut, Miss America. Yeah, and Mary is blessed with one of those extraordinary voices, and it's there, it's front and center, it's everywhere in Miss America. By turns, hiccuping, halting, swooping, warbling, fractured, and then just, incredibly sweet and lilting. Yeah, her voice really is just this magical thing. If you're only aware of her through, her brief cameo in Morrissey's, November Spawned a Monster, then you definitely need to visit her album and get more Mary Margaret O'Hara in your life. At 5, I've got Rick Froberg. The long-time kind of vocal and guitar foil to John Rice in some of his most enduring side projects. Think, Drive Like Jehu, Hot Snakes. Yeah, John and Rick have a lot of history. Yeah, they were also in a very short-lived band pre-John's Rocket from the Crypt. That band was called Pitchfork. Yeah, and Rick is just, this great, hoarse, passionate punk rock singer, really. He channels a lot of that early, pre-punk kind of surfy garage rock feel. Yeah, raw and kind of relentless, but with a really soulful kind of R&B edge when he needs it. Yeah, and that particular element, I think Rick's own band Obits, they doubled down on that sound really well. Yeah, Rick really kind of channels a kind of a punk rock John Fogerty, that Creedence sound on some of the best Obits songs. Take tracks like Light Sweet Crude or even better, Two-Headed Coin from their 2009 debut album, I Blame You. Okay, the next two on this list, I've mentioned in previous videos talking about their albums, so I'll try and be quick with these. So at number 6, I've got Mark Hollis of Talk Talk. Yeah, the late Mark Hollis, Talk Talk were kind of the new romantic synth poppers who kind of accidentally invented post-rock, I guess you'd say. He's just a fabulous, powerful singer with this really utterly commanding understanding of how to use the dynamics of a voice, how that can be the most devastating thing in your arsenal. Yes, he could go from just this whisper to a heartbreaking kind of cry in the space of just a few bars. Yeah, a really wonderful and a much missed talent. Yeah, and at number 7, I've got Craig Wedren of Shudder to Think. Yeah, the owner of just, an astonishing range, incredible control and technique, always verging on the kind of operatic. Shudder to Think's music was dominated by his voice. But I think, like Mark Hollis, his control and his instincts, always feel exemplary. And where the bands would, let this kind of music slide into, almost parody, rock opera type territory, Shudder to Think were far too weird, far too hyper emotional, far too smart to ever succumb to that. Yeah, I've talked about Pony Express record. Seek that one out. You've got to experience it for yourself. 8th on my list. This would probably be the voice of trip hop, I guess, for her contributions to the music of Portishead. Yeah, I've got Beth Gibbons. Yeah, you think of tracks like, Glory Box, Sour Times, maybe Humming, Machine Gun. Beth, I think, really conjured the kind of the bruised, the fragile heart of the Portishead sound. bending into very kind of smoky, jazzy textures, or able to flip into a kind of a more clear-eyed, folky, melodic style, just as the music required. But I think if you really need an utterly crushing demonstration of Beth's talent, you really should seek out her performance with the Polish National Radio Orchestra, being conducted by Penderecki, of Gorecki's Third Symphony. It is just such an incredibly emotional piece of music, normally handled by a trained classical singer. But if you see Beth take this on, then you just get this sense of absolute crushing desolation. Yeah, Beth really gets under the skin of what this music is about. It's about loss. It's about the tragedy and the horror of war. The loss of loved ones, of children, is at the heart of this piece of music. And I think going into the second year of the war in Ukraine at the moment, this piece of music is more relevant than ever. Yeah, do be warned, it's a very overpowering piece of music. And I would not be surprised if you were moved to tears by it. Okay, this is probably as far as I'm going to stray from the kind of alternative spheres here, but I couldn't miss him off. Yeah, it's that emotional side that connects with you again. Anyway, yeah. At number 9, I've got Peter Gabriel. Yeah, I did think, should I really include this? But in the end, I felt I had no choice. It's a purely personal choice for me. And there's just something in that kind of, that cracked mid-range of his, that breathy kind of high scratchiness that he brings, that just instantly connects with me. Yeah, I do favour his solo stuff probably over the Genesis years. Maybe A Lamb Lies Down accepted. Yeah, I'm thinking those 4 solo albums, from 1 through to 4 from the late 70s into the early 80s. Yeah, tracks like, No Self-Control, Shock the Monkey, Vico. Yeah, no apologies here. Yeah, I love his voice, I always have, so he's in. Yeah, 10, another big name. Yeah, I've got Björk. Yeah, Björk has had her big pop moments, but she's always seemed happiest kind of pushing her music and her voice into the strangest of places, and really testing people out. And she may have started out as a child star in Iceland and rattled a few people with, the avant-garde art rock of her early bands like Kugel. But it would be Birthday by the Sugar Cubes, which really introduced her to a global audience in a big way. Yeah, Birthday was just a landmark release, really, I think, for the Icelandic music scene. And what can you say about her voice? It's just got so much going on in it. She can go from these breathy kind of childlike giggles to huge, scraping, modulating, shrieking highs, and then just get all low and growly, always with that strange kind of fractured halting cadence and rhythm. Yeah, beyond the Sugar Cubes, there's lots to take your pick from. Her 90s albums hold up really well, something like Homogenic, tracks like Yoga and Bachelorette. And I think her vocal album from 2004, Medulla, that's pretty extraordinary too. Yeah, either way you look at it, she's an utterly unique talent and a big influence, I think, creatively on some other very big artists. Tom York has always been a huge, huge fan of Björk. At 11, I've got Chuck D of Public Enemy and The Prophets of Rage. Yeah, I've talked about PE before on this channel, so I will keep this one brief. What can you say? Just what a voice. This just huge, booming, powerful, thick voice. Very deep, resonant, low mid-range. That focus that he's got, it just hits you square in the chest. Yeah, any of the singles off their second album, It Takes a Nation of Millions, would be prime examples of Chuck's talent. I mean, think of the irresistible punch of that, here it is, bam, at the beginning of Night of the Living Bassheads. That's Chuck D in microcosm there. Yeah, always with the boxing metaphors, get in, hit them hard, don't let up, a fantastic rapper. And 12th on the list, I've got Vic Chestnut. Yeah, another dear departed, favourite of the channel in Vic. This just cracked, faltering, hollering mess of his voice, giving way to these very, very sweet country-tinged melodies. Yeah, he's managed to stamp some awfully strange rhythms on his syllables to squeeze in all those, magic little couplets of his. Yeah, I've talked about him before, as I've said. But if you want a kind of a gentle intro to Vic, go listen to his duet with Michael Stipe of REM on the track Guilty by Association from his Is the Actor Happy album. Okay, and at 13 on my list, I have got Kristen Hirsch. Yeah, kind of a double entry here, if you like. Kristen also made it onto my guitarist list, but here she is on the vocalist one too. Yeah, and her voice kind of runs the gamut from this kind of soft, folk country inflected style to this jabbering, shrieking hysteria. extremely expressive, by turns kind of soothing and plaintive, and then just, jagged and rasping. Her lyrical themes are very dense and personal, but always extremely arresting. She's had a long battle with mental illness and suffered, several misdiagnoses along the way. But a combination of, her dissociative condition and the synesthesia she has, she sees music as colours, I think has greatly informed both her songwriting and the way she performs. Kristen's a one-off, I think. At 14, I've got Billy Mackenzie of The Associates. Yeah, one of the most distinctive voices, I think, of that kind of new pop era of the kind of the post-punk times in the early 1980s. Yeah, this powerful kind of swooping, high tenor voice that could, nestle into this low, slinky growl at will. Yeah, a quite astonishing range, really, and this utterly, steadfast commitment to, high drama in his music. Yeah, Billy took his own life in 1997, a few months before his 40th birthday. Yeah, a very active collaborator with a bunch of artists, but I mean, the real gold for me in his back catalogue is those early Associates records with Alan Rankin. And just settle on the classics there. Party Fears 2, Club Country, from the Sulk album. They're just classics of the 80s kind of synth pop and new romantic era. Okay, 15, and another divisive one, no doubt. I've got David Thomas of Pere Ubu. Yeah, how would you define Pere Ubu? People tried, were they post-punk, were they art rock, new wave? I think the band categorized themselves as avant-garage, but whatever you call them, given the length of their career, when, where, and how they originated, Cleveland, Ohio, go Browns. They are nonetheless a seminal US underground band. And David was always there right at the helm. He very clearly draws on Captain Beefheart, I think, in some way. And also, I think, channels a little the same, that hyper-kinetic style of David Byrne of Talking Heads. This kind of, James Joycean chatter almost, amidst all the whooping and the howling and the stuttering. That's really all David. You could argue it's more, performance art or theatre than singing, but this is music, and David's voice is leading the charge. So really, who cares? Yeah, and like Marky Smith, it made great with some, but it's an utterly integral part of that hugely influential Pere Ubu sound. I mean, you could start with early classics like Street Waves from the Modern Dance or Caligari's Mirror off Dub Housing, all the way through their pop period. They had a pop period, tracks like We Have the Technology or Waiting for Mary, right up to the current day. 2019's The Long Goodbye album could be their final, who knows? Yeah, either way, utterly unique, I think, and one of the most complete and idiosyncratic performance of the post-punk era. And at 16, another two-timer for this series, I've got Kim Deal. Yeah, she was on the bass playlist, but she's so much more than, the other Pixie. I actually think her own work with the Breeders and some of her solo stuff easily surpasses what some of her former bandmates are doing right now. Yeah, just a very sweet, kind of close voice that lives in this very nice little neighborhood, somewhere between, husky and breathy. Yeah, there's not a huge range or breadth, I think, to Kim's voice, but she just finds these harmonies so naturally and never kind of over-eggs anything. Yeah, she's got this kind of effortless gear shift from like a semi-spoken style into singing that's just so smooth. And she can sing in a slightly lower register than a lot of female singers as well. I think it just meshes very well with her songwriting style. Yeah, this is one of those voices that lands a big tick in that, the taste box that I was talking about. It really just works spectacularly well in the context of the music that she uses it in. There are more obvious tracks I could suggest, but here's a deep dive option for you. Listen to her solo number, Are You Mine, from a single release of about 2013. It's just a beautiful song about her mother's Alzheimer's and her inability to recognize Kim, her own daughter. Yeah, it's a lovely piece of music. So at 17 on this list, I've got Jeff Martin of Idaho. So as well as some absolutely, stellar tenor guitar, Jeff's deep, kind of rich baritone is the key to the kind of slow motion atmospherics of his band, Idaho. Yeah, his voice is thick and syrupy and sleepy. It feels like it oozes into the gaps between the beats like oil. Yeah, that early kind of definitively slowcore period of the band is probably my favourite. And I think Jeff's voice is just so purely in tune with the general aesthetic. It's a perfect combination. Yeah, Skyscrape, the track off their debut album of 1993, Year After Year, it's an all-time favourite of mine. With Jeff's vocal melody, you know, it slides down the walls of one of the great chord progressions, I think, of the 1990s. Yeah, it's magic stuff. At 18 on this list, I've got Sally Timms of the Mekons. Yeah, the owner of another of those, you know, clear, folky female voices that just works beautifully in the right setting. And I think the music of the Mekons is just such a setting. It really acts as a counterpoint to that, you know, defiantly prickly, punky attitude they have, that kind of heart on sleeve, country inflected punk rock. Yes, Sally's been a member since the early mid 1980s and has become an integral part of that sound of theirs. And again, it's just this very sweet, clear, musical, very pure voice that cuts across the racket. And personally, I'm of the opinion that their single, The Ghosts of American Astronauts, from about 1988-89, I think it's one of the great underrated singles of the 1980s. Literally, in my head, there is a parallel universe somewhere where it was a #1 record for 7 or 8 weeks. And it's just got one of the most arresting lyrical openings ever. It starts up in the hills above Bradford, outside the napalm factory. It's magic, and that's Sally Timms. Okay, right now, yes, number 19. I've got John Lydon of the Sex Pistols and Public Image Limited. Yeah, a obvious inclusion, I guess, but lest we forget, this is the originator of that much copied punk rock sneer that defined a whole musical movement. Yeah, the massive cultural reach of the Pistols was thanks in no small part to the character of Johnny Rotten, you know, the sheer poisonous fury that he managed to convey with that voice. But I think we should be clear, John was never a non-singer, and you know, through that period, the dissolution of the Pistols into the post-punk era with Pill, he took his voice into some very, very interesting places. I mean, take that warble of his, you know, if you like it or loathe it, whatever, he's always in control of it. It's never just some kind of affectation to just kind of lash out with. And those Eastern melodies, think Flowers of Romance, that feel of an almost kind of a Muslim call to prayer. Yeah, I think he actually developed into a great kind of very instinctive singer, limited maybe, but he could, you know, use every ounce of what he had, and was a very daring lyricist and a great collaborator, I think. And yeah, you can question the guy himself, you know, the contradictions, the TV ads for butter, you know, the Trump support, my goodness. But with regard to his voice, I don't think there's much to argue with there. Yeah, most recently he tried out to kind of represent Ireland in the Eurovision Song Contest and failed. But, you know, we know why he did it. And John, all the best to you and to Nora. And so the final entry on this list, yeah, at number 20, I've got Colin Newman. And I'm going to hold back with this one just a bit, just to talk about Colin's voice because, and here's a spoiler alert, if you've got this far into the video, you must be interested. Yeah, I've got a big 2-part Wire feature in the pipeline for the very near future. But anyway, back to Colin. Yeah, he probably carries, I think, the majority of the weight of the vocal duties in Wire, you know, with Graham Lewis, the bass player, taking the lead maybe, you know, a couple of times per album. But crucially, Graham Lewis tends to write the vast majority of the band's lyrics, which I think has given Colin, you know, just enough distance, I think, from the lyrics themselves to do some pretty interesting things vocally. I mean, early on in their career, yeah, Colin's voice is that classic, you know, slightly snotty Brit punk. But as they developed at some speed, that changed. Yeah, the band's embracing of technology and effects, you know, went far beyond guitars and instruments, with Colin quite happily, you know, treating and processing his vocals in very interesting ways. He uses chorus, delay, and there's also that, you know, that signature kind of harsh, kind of Dalek almost distortion that he adds to his voice occasionally for even more impact. But yeah, unadorned, what a sweet, kind of calm lullaby voice he has. Yeah, it's this disarming kind of pop breathiness that often belies some pretty, you know, jagged words underneath. Yeah, I have no hesitation in saying that Colin's voice is my favourite on this list. So that's my 20. As I said, I found this harder to do than the instrumental ones. I don't know if it's purely just that emotional connection you have with certain voices, but in the end, I just felt I had to kind of focus on the ones that really sung to me, if you pardon the pun. And more often than not, that was some quite big established voices. I should add there are a ton that, could have easily made it into this list. In fact, if I made this list on a different day, you would have any one of a number of other artists making it in, I think. I mean, I've not mentioned Michael Stipe or Tom York. Robert Wyatt is another one. There are lots of other female voices I could have mentioned. Big fan of Suzanne Vega, Grace Jones, Bowie, Iggy, Tom Waits, even Green Gartside, Scritti Politti, that Candy Rush, that high, hyper pop, hyper analytical thing he does. Yeah, on another day, any of these could have made it into this last 20. As always, I really value what you think of these lists of mine, so please do comment below, add a like if you like what you've seen. And that's that. Yeah, thanks for watching the video. Please subscribe if you'd like to watch some more of my stuff. But in the meantime, take care and bye for now.